One, two, three.
Welcome to Scéalta. My name is Joe Austin. Can I remind you that Scéalta is a joint production of Fáilte Fíorsta Here and Féileán Phobal. Immigration in Ireland is nothing new. All of us have family members or friends or neighbours who have left Ireland's shores, mostly for America, but not always. My guest this morning, today, my guest is someone who's done the reverse journey, had to do it the difficult way. So my guest is Kimberly Robertson, who is a Bostonian, or was a Bostonian, and is now a resident of our fair city, Belfast. So welcome to Scéalta. And I suppose I should ask you, is your head right? Why would you come from Boston to Belfast? So you explain the logic behind that.
So that's something I actually get asked quite frequently when I speak to people, when I meet them here, and I say, oh, you're from America. Yeah, I'm from America. Why would you come here? I'd love to live in America. And I kind of joke back and say, well, America's full of Americans. So no, I came over here. I went back to school at quite an old age. I was 32 when I went back to university, and I took a class at University of Massachusetts Lowell, which is where I got my undergrad. But I took a class called Problems of Modern Ireland, and I was very interested in this class. It was fantastic. And my professor actually said to me, there's a summer school in Belfast in Northern Ireland, and I think you'd love it. And I said, oh, I was kind of looking at a summer school in Cork. I really liked that idea. And he said, nope, you need to go to Belfast. I think you'll love it. If you don't like it, I'll pay for you to go to Cork next summer. Right, okay, fine. So I applied for the summer school and I went, and within days, I said, I love this city. I love this country. I love this city. These people are incredible. How can I move here? So I ended up finishing my summer school, returning to Massachusetts and doing my rest of my semester. And I came back in the spring of 2014 for a study abroad for a full semester.
Yeah.
Fell even more in love with Belfast and the country and the people. Right? How can I get more? So I went home, graduated, and came back my master's degree and never left.
Can I take you back to that part of your life that was spent in America? And I know you go back frequently for holidays and to see family members. So you're not completely cured, but you still go back. I am employed. I was going to say I work, but that would be an exaggeration. I'm employed by a not-for-profit company called Fáilte Fíorsta Here, and the job that we do is we promote West Belfast, and we promote it for tourism in particular. And we still have that end of the stigma of Belfast, the city of conflict. Now, you know, and I know that's not our city. It's not like that, and it was like that, but those are the bad old days, and hopefully they're gone, never to return. When you announced to your parents, I'm going to live in Belfast, they didn't get it confused with Beirut, did they? They knew it was Belfast.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with a family in Massachusetts that had strong Irish heritage. 3 out of my 4 grandparents were of Irish descent, and it was something that we followed this. You know, I was born in 1980, and I grew up in America following the Troubles, especially in Boston. It was nightly news.
Yeah.
And to us, especially growing up, Northern Ireland just seemed like,
yeah.
It was scary. You know, every night in the news, you were hearing all these horrible things. And, you know, I was 18 or 17 when the Good Friday Agreement was signed. It was my senior year of high school. And it was just, my whole family had this hope. You know, this is good. This is good for the future. It's hope. And then we kind of didn't hear anything more about Northern Ireland or Belfast or Ireland in general, because with some of the news stories. So, like I said, we'd always kind of concentrated on our Irish heritage, very proud to be of Irish descent. And when I went back to university and told my family I was moving to Belfast, Northern Ireland, I got, and what? And they said, it's just not safe there. Are you sure it's safe? And I said, of course it's safe. It's not like that anymore. And they're like, oh, just be careful. You know, I remember horror stories. And, you know, my aunt had traveled to Ireland in the 80s, and she had wanted to come to the north, and the tour group wouldn't let her. They wouldn't take them to the north because it was quite dangerous. So I think my family had that in their mind, that it was still quite a dangerous place to be. And, you know, they had that natural fear. Of course, I'm going to live 3,000 miles away. They'd be afraid of any of that. But telling them I was coming to Northern Ireland, I think was a bit of a shock and a bit of fear for me, especially being an Irish Catholic girl from Boston. And I'm moving to Northern Ireland, and, you know, everybody knew the misconceptions that you had. You know, they didn't like Catholics in the north, and it was dangerous to be a Catholic in the north. And I thought it was quite strange that my family still thought that it was a hard place to live and a scary place to live. And I had to explain to them, it's not like that. It's a beautiful city. It's a welcoming city. It's safe. It's safer than Boston. And I think they still had that kind of in the back of their head. And then my mother came to visit me in March of 2016 with one of my neighbors back home. And she said, within a day or two of arriving, it's nothing like I thought it would be. It's totally different. It's a wonderful city. And I said, right, see, I've been telling you that. It's not like what the idea that a lot of Americans have about Northern Ireland. I think we still focused to an extent on the troubles and on how rough life was here, how hard life was here. And I think they were shocked to see that it is a city, and it's a vibrant city, and it's a welcoming city. So I was lucky enough, just before lockdown this year, my husband and I were celebrating our first year wedding anniversary. Thank you. And about 25 members of my family flew over here for an anniversary party and a wee family reunion. And they absolutely loved it. I mean, my aunts, who are in their 70s, were all over Belfast, shopping, going to museums, going to visit different things, doing the tours, and just fell in love with it. And they said, now we know why you love it here so much. They're already planning to come back as soon as the restrictions are lifted. And it gave me so much happiness and light to see, especially my Aunt Alice, her and I would be the family historians, the family genealogists. We're the ones who would have the deepest kind of love for the island of Ireland and the culture and the people. And she said to me, this is all I wanted before the end of my life, was to come to Ireland. And now I've done it. And I was so happy that she came here. And I was able to take her to the village that her grandfather, my great-grandfather, was from before he immigrated to Ireland down south. And it was so emotional and so happy to have my family to experience why I love Ireland so much.
You obviously speak very endearing about your family. So just so that people get a sense of that, what is your immediate family? Do you have brothers and sisters?
No, I'm an only child. My mother's one. Then. I'm sorry?
You're the one that gets spoiled all the time.
Very much so. My mother was one of 10. She's the second youngest of 10. And I always joked around that my mother got it right the first time, so she didn't have to try anymore. I've only my mother. My father passed away about 4 years ago as I was finishing up my graduate degree. But I've only my mother and my aunts and my uncles and my cousins. And I have a wonderful family. They're so supportive. I never lacked having brothers or sisters because I had so many cousins. And it was like having brothers and sisters. So it wasn't anything that I missed growing up, of having a large immediate family, because they are my immediate family. My cousins are my brothers and sisters, and my aunts and uncles are more mothers and more fathers. So I'm very lucky to have the family I have. They're just incredible.
You mentioned that gap between leaving high school and university, and you went back at a later time. I wouldn't say later years, but at a later time. Was that time out, or did you just think education wasn't for you? Or
no, I went to university right after high school, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I was just taking classes and really not into it. Taking classes because that was what I was expected to do, was you'd go to high school and you go to college, and that was it. And when I was 24, my father had a stroke, a severe, serious stroke. And I left university to help my mom take care of him. And about 6 months after he came home from the hospital, and he handed me a newspaper and pointed at it like, get a job, time to get a job. So I went into Boston and I got myself a job as a receptionist at a wealth management company. and it was my first big girl job. And I did that off and on for about 7 years. And then I got made redundant. And because I didn't have a degree, I panicked. I didn't know what to do. In Massachusetts, we have what's called a retraining program. When you're on unemployment, which is, I was lucky enough to be able to go on unemployment. If you wanted to go and retrain yourself in a new skill, they will help you pay for it. They will continue to give you your unemployment while you're retraining, provided you're still in university. So I was lucky enough to be able to, the first year or two of university, have that benefit to fall back on while I got my degree. And originally, I had only intended to go and finish my 2-year degree, which is an associate's degree at home. Yeah. And I have a 2-year degree in criminal justice. And I went back into that and I said, well, I have actually done quite well. So maybe I will go on and get a 4-year degree. That's good. So I went on and applied for a 4-year university degree, completed that, and I graduated with honors. And then I ended up getting a master's degree, which was just beyond my wildest dreams, was to ever have a master's degree. I didn't think I would ever even going to get a bachelor's degree. So yeah, it was twists and turns of fate, and it all worked out.
I'm absolutely certain your father would be very proud of you.
Thank you.
I hope making that advertisement or bringing it to your attention. So you've got all this education. You're a superstar. And you're heading to Ireland. Tell me about arriving in Ireland when you just got here. Was it intrepidation? Was it, have I made the right decision? Is this what's going to work out? Or
I think the first time I flew over here in 2013 for the summer school program, it was a month long, so it wasn't a huge amount of time, but it was still a decent enough amount of time away from.
Where did you stay?
So I flew into Dublin. And I stayed in Dublin, right in city centre for a few days, just did the tourist thing. And then I got on the train and came to Belfast. But I distinctly remember flying into Dublin, and you're on Aer Lingus and it's all very fiddly-dee, and they're all the American tourists coming into Ireland, and just having my face pressed to the window to see my first glimpse of where my ancestors came from. And your heart starts pounding, and then all of a sudden, you land and you're outside and you're breathing this air in, and you're looking around. I mean, granted, the view outside Dublin Airport isn't exactly the prettiest.
No, absolutely not.
But I got in a taxi to take me to my hotel, and I face glued to the window, looking at everything I could see, and window to window, sliding across the taxi, and the taxi driver's laughing at me. And he said, "You look very happy there." And I said, "I am. I'm very happy." It's just, and he said, "Well," he's like, "Are you Irish yourself?" And I said, "Well, my family is, yes. I'm descended from Irish ancestry." And he said, "That happiness you're feeling, that's the land. It's calling back to your blood. It recognizes you. It's welcoming you home." And at the time, it was like, what is this guy saying? But it's absolutely something. And my family, when they came over, they said the same thing. It felt like they were coming home. It felt like they were welcome from the beginning. And every time I come back to Ireland from America, it's that same feeling, is that I'm coming home. I never felt that I was moving to a foreign country. I always felt like I was coming home. And I think to a certain degree, I've come home. This is my home.
You've arrived in Belfast. You kind of have your where did you live? Did you live in a hostel, or did you live in a home?
No. So because the program was through Queen's, I lived in student housing. I lived in the Elms Village. And then when I came back for my semester abroad, I lived over in College Gardens, which luckily enough was right across the street from Queen's. So I didn't have to make that walk from Elms. And then for my master's degree, I lived actually with a very good friend out in Newton Abbey. She opened her home to me, and I was able to live there. And then, I met my husband, my now husband, when I was doing my master's degree, and basically just moved in here in East Belfast. And I've been here ever since.
Did you, and I know you're better than a travel book, by the way. You're very, very descriptive in your observations, but was there any downside? Was the food as good as, or the drink as good as, or the boys as good looking?
I think the drink is better here. The drink is absolutely better. I feel like a bit of a snob now. When I go home, I can't drink Guinness. It's just not as nice when I go back to America. I like the food here it's fresher. It's more accessible. It's definitely more local. My husband likes to joke around and say, you know, we were doing farm to table before it was cool, because that's
absolutely.
just how it is here. The one thing I miss in America is the variety of food I can get in America and how quickly I can get it. But no, I prefer it here. I do miss certain things, you know, about American food. The first time I went into a grocery store to do a shop, and I said, where's the rest of the cereal? And, you know, Neil kind of laughed at me, and he was like, you know, we don't have 80 different boxes of cereal here like you ones do. And I was like, well, that's true. And it's something that I never thought of when I was growing up in America, is how much we have. We have access to so much, so many different varieties and so many different choices. And over here, you know, you have great choices. They're just limited as to what you can get. And I think a lot of it is, you know, we're much smaller. So, yeah, I mean, everything, there wasn't a huge downside. I have unfortunately encountered some people that have told me to go home, to go back to America, no immigrants, and just laugh it off, let it go off your shoulders.
I always am amazed that of us all, of Irish people, more than anyone, to ever suggest that there's something wrong with being an immigrant is such a reverse of what we do and what we done. Some people done it through choice. Some people done it for economic reasons. Some people done it for political reasons. But we are a country, a nation of immigrants. And we should know the good manners too well. And we should also know the value that we receive from immigrants coming to us, and that kind of learning curve. You may or may not be familiar with it. Mark Twain once wrote a book called A Yank in King Arthur's Court. Do you remember? Have you ever came across it?
I read it a long time ago in high school, but yes, I am familiar with it.
You could jump right out of one of the pages, because it's around that, although the person who was in King Arthur's Court didn't go voluntarily, it's a novel, so they arrived there through a series of mishaps. But it's that kind of, they're the only Yank in town. There ain't anybody else. And you were telling a story earlier on of a comedian who singled you out. Tell me that again.
So we had a fundraiser for East Belfast GAA.
Yep.
And we were fortunate enough to get some great comedians, and Shane Todd happened to be one of them. And one of the guys in my club, he's on the hurling team, is Darren Matthews. And Darren Matthews is a local comedian, and he's hilarious. So he was the MC. And of course, he was the one that pointed out the American in the crowd. And
what you need on a night out?
You know, unfortunately, my husband and I were sitting at the front table to the stage. And if you've ever been to a comedy show, never sit at the front table. Like, it's terrible. It's a horrible place to be. And, you know, so Shane Todd comes on, he starts talking about East Belfast GAA and how weird it is to some people to think that there's a GAA club in East Belfast. And, you know, he was talking about how Netflix is going to have to make a movie about this, and it's going to be on American Netflix, and everybody is going to be played by American actors except for me. I kind of said, oh, who's going to play me? And he's like, one of us. So it was just a long running joke between me and my teammates is sometimes I sound very American, like vitamins. I say vitamins, I say herbs, and, you know, they laugh at me, but then I'll come out with something like, oh, well, it's only a wee issue, so it is. And they'll look at me, where did that come from? And I've lived here 7 years. I've picked up a lot of your lingo.
Yeah, of course.
And I don't even think of it anymore. And I was speaking to one of my friends back home, and she said, oh my God, you sound so Irish. And I was like, funny to hear, I'm still just the American. So
when you're here, you're the American, and when you're there, you're Irish.
100%. I was actually back in Boston, and I met up with a friend in an Irish bar I used to work at, and I was chattering away to the bartender. He's from Cork, and this woman comes over, and she told us the two of us had the loveliest Dublin accents she had ever heard.
Beautiful.
And he kind of looked at her and he looked at me, and he was like, I'm from Cork. She's pure East Belfast.
Yeah,
it just made me laugh that, you know, you have this misconception, and I had it as well, is that everybody on the island has the same accent.
Of course.
And then you come over here and you realize you know, my husband has a different accent from one of my friends who grew up 2 miles away. You know, their accents are different throughout the city of Belfast, which.
But that's the beauty of diversity.
100%.
I noticed you have the team, East Belfast team colours on.
I do. I have my training kit on.
By the way, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think you might be a wee bit of a poser. But
well, you know, I did just get back from a run with one of my teammates. So
a while ago, I had Linda Irvine, who you know, and who I think she's the honorary president of the club.
She is.
And she kind of told me a bit about herself. Actually, a very, very interesting interview. And that shouldn't be a surprise. She's a very interesting person. But
she's a wonderful woman. Tell
me how you ends up in East Belfast GAA. What was that journey? Were you sporty before that? And did that? So you tell me.
Yep. So I've always been quite sporty, quite athletic. I played field hockey and ice hockey growing up. And then I hadn't really played an organized team sport since probably my early 20s. And I'd always kind of seen hurling, like on TV or in Boston, actually, to sidetrack a wee bit. They do the hurling classic at Fenway Park around November-ish. And they bring over 4 county teams to play at Fenway Park, which is where the Red Sox play, the baseball stadium in Boston. And it's always on TV. And I remember watching it and going, oh my God, this is brutal. Oh, I need to learn this sport. And you know, I had moved over here, and obviously living in East Belfast, your GAA options are non-existent. So I did a little bit of research when I moved over here permanently about maybe picking it up. But again, I turned 40 this summer, and who wants to take on a 40-year-old who does not know how to play the sport? You don't really want to join a club that's already established, because where do you fit in? Especially if you're brand new to the sport, you know, where are you going to learn with the kids? You're going to be on like the weigh-ins team, you know, and no, it doesn't really make sense. So I was sitting at home and flipping through Twitter, and I saw this, you know, brand new GAA club for East Belfast, all levels and all backgrounds welcome. Send an email to this email address. And I said, oh, sure, why not? I'll give it a go. I can't be the only brand new person to this, especially being set up in East Belfast. So I sent Davey an email, and I got one back right away. And they said, you know, we're going to have a mini intro session over at Cherryvale this week, you know, this weekend, if you want to come by. So, and like I said, no one I knew around here was going to be interested in it. And so this is the thing I'm doing on my own. So my husband lifted me over to Cherryvale, and he just said to me, good luck. Off he went. Off he went. And from the minute I set foot on there and started speaking to people, I said, I love these people. I love this group. It's fantastic. So I kicked a ball around for a bit. Now, I had played soccer when I was a kid, pretty much from about 7 to 19, and I was a keeper. So I knew how to kick the ball. I knew how to throw the ball, but I was really, really intrigued by hurling and camogie. And I kept looking over at the hurls that were on the side of the pitch. Like, when can I grab one of those?
I want to hit someone.
I wanted to hit something, you know, like a lot of frustration here. And so I went over and I picked up the hurl, and I'm trying to learn how to hold it, because it is quite different than holding a hockey stick. And I remember them teaching me how to jab lift it and how to roll lift it. And then they said, I see how far you can hit it. And I whacked it, and I said, right, this is for me. I love it. I don't care how long it takes me to learn this. I'm learning it. So I went out that weekend and got myself a hurl and a slitter, and just took myself out to the pitch near my house, and, you know, started batting it around. And we started up with regular training sessions. And at this point, we didn't know how we were going to do. We didn't know if we were going to have enough interest, or we didn't know if we were going to be able to have a season, just because of COVID and everything that had been going on. And the next thing you know, they're like, right, your first game is the 17th. And okay, like, great, fine. So, you know, we all traveled down to Killeaf, and I had, the night before they had given out the jerseys, who was going to be on the team. And I remember being handed a jersey, and as I'm holding it in my hands and looking down, I'm like, what have I gotten myself into? Like, okay. And our first match, I didn't start. My teammate Kiva and I were interviewed by Mark Sidebottom, which was really incredible to just think that the attention we're getting is incredible. It's overwhelming, and it's really, really anxiety inducing because, you know, you don't want to fail. You're on national television right now. And I remember Illy, who is on the hurlers team, and he was taking our coaching duties that day. And he patted me on the back and he said, right, off you go, corner forward. And I said, I'm sorry, what? I don't know the positions. I don't know the game. I don't even know the rules yet.
Consolation, nor do I.
Well, you know, I still don't. So
I'm following you, following me. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
He put me out in the pitch, and I was like, Illy, I don't know what I'm doing. He's like, well, you're a forward, right? And I said, I don't know. I've never played this game. And he said, coach told me you're a forward, so that's where you're going. I said, okay, what do I do? And he's like, just try to hit the ball. Okay, fair enough. And I got into one kind of little scuffle with a girl, and I ended up knocking her over. And the first thing I do is, it's almost automatic, I'm so sorry. And I hear him from the sidelines, don't apologize. And then I hear the other coach going, she's no relation. It was just, oh God. And exhilarating to be out there and have that match. And it just made me want to learn more and made me want to be better. And, you know, you start going to training and you start working harder and you start going out on your own and practicing your skills and working with your teammates. And next thing you know, you're scoring your first goal in a championship match. And it was such an incredible experience to me to have a sport I've been playing for 4 months at 40. And I scored a goal in a championship match. And I found a family. You know, these girls are my sisters. They're my sisterhood. And we take care of each other. We love each other. You know, the negative stuff that we started getting towards the club, it was so hurtful. It was really hurtful to think that we just want to play a sport. It's not political. It's not, you know, we don't care where you go on a Sunday. I don't care where my teammates, you know, who they date, where they go to church, where they went to school. I don't care. And to have this sort of negative kind of attention being brought on us, it really just kind of detracted from what we were trying to do. And all we were trying to do was play a sport.
A while ago, I had the privilege of interviewing a woman called Jane Adams. And I don't know whether that name means anything to you or not, but Jane Adams is an iconic camogie player. She's in the Hall of Fame. She is an All-Ireland club champion. She was the captain of the Antrim team, and she's really, really very well known, successful businesswoman who, through the freedom of sport and the fellowship that you're referring to, she identified her own sexuality, and quite recently she married her partner, and she now has a wife, and she's all of that. But she spoke about that friendship, that companionship, that equality that you get, and that dependency you get on a camogie team or any team sport, I would imagine. You can probably tell by looking at me, I'm not particularly sporty, but she said, you know, that was the beginning of a process that freed her. It convinced her she was as good as anybody. Mm-hmm. It convinced her that she wasn't going to be judged by people who mattered. And it convinced her that, you know, you just have to stand up for what you are and what you believe. And when you spoke there, it reminded me when you talked about, and I know you're very proud of scoring the goal, and why wouldn't you be? But you spoke about that sense of sisterhood and friendship and all of that. And it must be even more important for someone who isn't from here, you know, and who's fitting in to a large extent, who's becoming part of a community, is part of a community. And so what was the attraction? Was the attraction throwing the girl over, scoring the goal, or was the attraction just, you know, this is something else that makes me equal among equals?
Do you know, I think one of my main things is I wanted to find something here that could be mine. You know, my husband is a rugby referee, and he has rugby, and he has his rugby club, and he has
you didn't get everything, by the way.
Right. He has his, you know, his wee group of friends, and, you know, they're wonderful and I love them. And, you know, I would consider them to be my friends as well, but that's very much his. And at home, I mean, I was a member of a sorority in college, and, you know, my sisters back home, they're my sisters for life. They're my family. And not having that sort of massive support system here, I wanted to find something that could be mine, that I could have on my own. And this was an opportunity for that. And that's exactly what it ended up being. Is it wasn't just me looking for something like that. It was all of us. There was something clearly missing in all of our lives that we decided we needed to have. And we've built this team together. We've built this family. And in a wider sense, we've built the club. And I mean, I've met so many people that I never would have encountered, you know, especially during lockdown. I went to work and I came home, or I went upstairs and went to work and I went back downstairs. You know, so I wasn't getting out of the house a lot, walking the dogs. That was it. I was quite lucky because I had had so much time here before I moved over permanently, you know, to live with my husband, where I had made my own friends and I had made kind of wee social circles. But this brought me something so much more. In addition to the life I already had here, it was an enrichment to my life to have this. And it's not just a sport, it's a club. You know, it's anybody who's belonged to the GAA, and granted I'm very new to it, knows what type of family you have with your club and how passionately you feel about your club and your colors and your badge and what you represent. So I think that was really important to all of us. And it still is, and it will continue to be. And I know it's a huge part of why I'm involved, is that we genuinely want to make a difference. And this is my home now. You know, Belfast is my home. Northern Ireland's my home. And I want to make this the best place to be, to raise a family. I want people to come here and see exactly what I saw and my family saw and how far we've come. And, you know, in the past 20 some odd years, and how we're not what we were before, and how we can get along, and things are changing and things are progressing. Yeah. And we are a progressive, forward thinking Northern Ireland.
There's a column in the Irish Times, actually the Saturday Irish Times, and it's a wildlife column, and people write in and they mention the names. You know, I seen a robin on the garden fence. Is this the first? Or squirrels are in my garden. Is this the first? And I remember distinctly there was a wit, someone who with a sense of humor had sent this in, and it said, "Seen two boys carrying herds on the Malone Road. Is this a first?" Okay. So I know you have very good neighbours, and I know you have a very good relationship. So you're leaving the house and you're going out and you're going out with a herd, and you're featuring on television, and there's articles been written, not you personally, but about the club. So do people raise an eyebrow out of curiosity? I know there's no hostility. I mean, the hostility is very limited, and it's quite often, like most of these things, it's very much exaggerated. And I suppose sometimes if we catch our breath, we should really kind of feel sorry for the people who don't see progress or don't want progress or feel threatened by progress. But is it, you know, when you're speaking to friends who are not involved with the GAA and they go, you know, they're asking you what your hobbies are and you say you're a camogie, is it you're a what? Do you still get that?
I think it's more, so what I started to do is once we have a club kit, I wear it everywhere. I wear it all over East Belfast. I wear it to the shop. I wear it to walk my dogs, because we need to normalize it. You need to normalize the fact that we're here and we're not taking anything away from anybody else, but we just want our wee bit. And you get weird looks sometimes. I mean, the badge and the kit is very noticeable now because it's been promoted so much. So you might get a double take. You know, I have some friends obviously that will kind of be like, "No, get that GAA stuff out of this place," and it's good-natured ribbing.
Okay, fine.
Stuff like that, which is fine. I've got a very thick skin. I can take it. I think more I see is curiosity. You know, I'll take my hurl out with a tennis ball and hit a ball for the dogs. Yeah. And you just kind of get people, especially where I live in East Belfast, and they'll just look like, what is she doing? But it's more curiosity. I haven't really gotten any sort of negative or hostile kind of remarks towards it. It's more, curiosity is what I would say it was. And I get a lot of, Jesus, you're wearing that in East Belfast. You're bold.
Well, let's both of us wish that this becomes the norm. You've mentioned your dog or dogs?
Dogs. I have 2 golden retrievers.
And I'm always a great believer that dogs need their place in the sun. So what's their names?
Kate and Lucy.
Very good.
So they're two sisters we adopted about 2 years ago from the Dogs Trust.
Dogs can be wonderful companions. They are wonderful companions. Can I take you momentarily back to America?
Of course.
And this is just for an observation. November the 3rd is the date of the election. America seems to be in political turmoil. There hardly a day when there's not a news story or a variation of an old story. And from afar, and just the same as you say, you know, people's perception of Ireland from afar or Belfast from afar was far more dangerous than it actually was. Mm-hmm. Is America, is there turmoil in America? Is the Trump presidency so divisive? Is all those things? And should we be alarmed?
So here's my thing. I've been a Democrat my whole life. I've never not voted Democrat, with the exception of the governor of my state. The governor of my state is a Republican. So I'm from Massachusetts, and Massachusetts is known as one of the bluest states in the union. So all of our representatives and both of our senators are blue Democrat.
That's okay. So blue's the Democrat.
Blue is Democrat, red is Republican. So when you hear them, politicians or newscasters talk about red states and blue states, that's what they mean, is just this state votes Democrat, this state tends to vote Republican. So my state, Massachusetts, is a strongly Democratic state. Both of our senators and all 9 of our representatives are Democrats, but our governor is a Republican. We tend to vote Republican governors, but everybody else is Democrat. So he would be the only exception that I've ever had in voting, is I voted for him because I think he's a very good governor. So to get on for that, to me, especially observing from afar, I was home to vote in 2016 because my father was quite sick. So I was home to vote, and I voted for Hillary because I thought it's time for a woman president. And, no, she's not perfect, but if you wait for a perfect candidate, you're never going to vote. And I absolutely could not stand Donald Trump. I still can't. I think he has done more to divide America than any leader we've ever had before. I think he has empowered and enabled some of these hateful, bigoted, just almost sectarian, racist people to come out of the woodworks. He's allowed this to be accepted in America. And that is so hurtful to me, especially being an immigrant in a foreign country and looking to see what some people back in America are treating immigrants as well. We're a nation built on immigrants. None of us are from America. All of us come from somewhere else. Our history, our heritage, our culture is all from other places. So to see in this short period of time, I'm third generation Irish and third generation Sicilian on my father's side. So it's funny to see most of us are third, fourth generation. That would be it, the farthest. To see we haven't come that far from our immigrant ancestors, and here we are turning on immigrants. And it baffles me to think that this is okay, that his rhetoric is accepted and fine. And it's hurtful. It's hurtful because I'm ashamed to be an American right now. I hate telling people I'm an American because it's obviously quite obvious, but it's embarrassing because he is allowed to get away with things with his speech and his mannerisms and the way he treats and talks to people, not only in my country, but all over the world. I can't ever remember a time where a president or a politician, this would be okay. Like, how is this allowed? It's never happened before. And I don't know why it's okay for him. It's almost like people are afraid to confront him or afraid to stop and say to him, what are you doing? Yes, America is very much in turmoil. It's, as my mother would say, it's not a very nice place to be right now. And that's sad because I'm always going to be American. That's always going to be a part of who I am. Yeah. But right now it's not a nice place. And I genuinely fear for the future. If he gets in for another term, I just don't know that America will ever be a nice place to be again.
Well, can I make an observation? I don't think that ordinary Americans like yourself have anything to be ashamed of. You're not the government. You don't make large extent. You don't make the policies and politics. I think all the things you've said is probably the feeling of most people in terms of tolerance and in terms of the broadness and in terms of all these things. And I was just wondering, you know, because you become inundated. I mean, I'm now addicted to CNN, you know, and just to try and understand, because as you'll appreciate, what happens in America affects us all. It's just so powerful and all of that. And just to have a sense of what's going on. I have great, like you, I have great faith in people. And I have great faith that the president that we currently have, we won't have come the week after the elections. Well, you know, you give a very impartial assessment of American politics there, I have to say. So tell me this. We're running out of time, believe it or not.
This went really fast.
Talking for nearly an hour, or we have been talking for an hour. Plans for the future. We haven't spoke about I know you were in lockdown for a while. Mm-hmm. Are you still in it, or are you out of it?
I got pinged by the app. I went back to work in my office, just figuring, you know, it'd be a nice change from being stuck in my attic room doing my work from home. And I got on a bus, which was my biggest fear, was being on a bus. And within 3 days, I got pinged by the app and had to self-isolate. And I missed basically the last 2 weeks of our camogie season. I couldn't even walk my dogs. I went and got a test and it was negative. So that was obviously very good. Yeah, so now I'm very hesitant about going back to the office when, you know, I've got a setup here at home and it works. So plans of the future, continuing on with what I do for work. I work in compliance and financial compliance, and I love it. I work for a great company.
What does that mean?
So basically, I make sure that all of the brokers are following the rules set out by the government and the FCA. That's my job in a nutshell, is to make sure you're following the rules and that you've done all your required qualifications for your job. You know, we'd love to have a family. We'd love to start a family.
I can give you mine if you want.
Do you know, a lot of people tell me that. One of my sorority sisters offered to send her daughter over so I could take her for a couple of weeks. Yeah, we'd love to have a family. I'm happy here. This is my home. I don't ever plan on leaving Belfast or Northern Ireland. Ireland is home now. And the North is so special to me, because I think in the grander scheme of things, when you have Americans talking about Ireland, people, like I said earlier, are still quite afraid to come to the North. Yeah. And they don't know what to expect. And I tell everybody, don't neglect the North. Don't neglect coming here. It is wonderful. First of all, it's much cheaper than Dublin. And the scenery is wonderful. And the people are friendly and the restaurants are fantastic. And to go back to the scenery, there's nothing like driving through the Glens or up on the North Coast, or, you know, out towards Derry, which is one of my favorite cities here. I love Derry. I could spend days and days and days in that city. So yeah, I think what I hope to do for the future is exploring more of the rest of the island, because unfortunately I haven't seen a whole lot of the South. Just having a life, and it's the first time I've actually lived in one country for more than a short period of time. I was bouncing back and forth for 7 years. And I've been here for 13 months now. So it's the longest I've been in one place for almost 7 years. I really feel settled now. I have my club, and I have my husband, and we have our family here and our group of friends, and just to continue to live. And it would be really nice not to be so obsessed with American politics.
Well, there's good obsessions and there's bad obsessions, you know. So when you're not drinking loads of Guinness and pushing poor girls off a commode, I'm tired of you. Do you like music? Do you read?
Yeah, I love to read. I love music. I'm actually currently learning Irish. I'm still very, very new, but I'm working through Linda, or the Turas online classes, and my teacher is actually my teammate Kiva, who is a wonderful instructor. So I started the Duolingo over lockdown. And then the courses just started about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I'm still very new, but it's a great experience. I've always wanted to learn Irish. I love learning languages. I have a few other ones that I'm a little bit competent in. So this is the 4th language I've attempted to learn. And it's great. It's something to keep my brain occupied. I definitely need things that stimulate me both academically and intellectually, as well as having the physical outlet of camogie or off-season training. So the busier I am, the happier I am.
And how do you find, see, I think that we're going to do another interview next year, and you're going to be the real Irish person, and I'm going to be catching up with you.
I can do it as Gaeilgeoir, maybe.
How do you find the learning of the language? Do you find it difficult? Do you find it?
I think I'm very lucky because I have a background in learning other foreign languages. So I understand a lot of the rules and kind of grammar restrictions to it. The pronunciation, I think, is the hardest. Looking at a word and, you want to say it with English phonetics, but it's not. And it's very difficult. So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I've got a great teacher, and she's also my friend. So I can always text her and say, what's this word? How do I say it? What does it mean?
Our time is up. We have been talking for an hour.
That went so fast.
It's a very enjoyable hour, I have to say. You're a very bubbly person.
Thank you.
You're easy to interview, and that's not always the case. You brought a whole lot to us. Sometimes we look at people who come into our communities, and we come into our circle of friends, and we kind of we look at what they haven't got as opposed to what they bring. So you've brought a whole lot to us. I think you're going to be do you know what a basher is?
No.
A basher is a person on a soccer team or a GAA team or a camogie team or a hockey team who's always fighting.
That's the bruiser back home. That would be
the
bruiser.
Or a basher, yeah. Well, I think you might, if you're not careful, end up as one of those. No, I'm sure. So can I thank you for being my guest?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Can I say hello to the dogs?
Oh, they're downstairs. They don't come upstairs. They're downstairs.
All the best in all your endeavors, whether it's the family, whether it's the language or the camogie or all of those. You've been a very entertaining guest. So,
thank you so much, Gorv Maggot.
All right. See you then, Kimberly. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.